Thank you for joining me today, Kritika, on Revenue Beacon with Prashant.
Thank you. Thanks, Prashant, and thanks for having me.
So let's begin talking about your very interesting journey. You were working with AmDocs. So what motivated you? What was the story behind choosing this field, good going career in AmDocs?
The field of disaster management and working in tourism and culture is something that I felt was a very organic part of my journey. I come from Uttarakhand, and in fact, the year I was born, the month I was born, a very big earthquake took place, and for many years that was all I would always listen to, that when you were born there was an earthquake that happened. And while it never really struck a chord, that was a story that kept coming back, and people used to revisit it over the years. And as part of my journey coming from Uttarakhand, and then back in 2012 when I did my master's in disaster management, and post which I worked in the Kedarnath floods, it kind of struck me that being from one of the most vulnerable states, calamity and disaster wise, I felt that there was not really much attention that was being paid to it. And while even when it was happening in the back, where the government and the stakeholders were actually working on it, nobody really talks about it, or nobody really features it in their plans when they travel, or even when they associate, going to these destinations. So I feel that my journey of being from there, of actually having the skills to understand and empathize with disasters and how communities live with it, and then eventually after having a kind of working for a decade in the corporate sector and the development sector, I felt it was a natural progression to have my understanding of disasters, to have my understanding of cultures, and to have my understanding of working with people to come together and form something like DCD.
Very interesting because nowadays we see that there is a boom about entrepreneurship. People want to do things, but then it's not easy to cut those strings, right? Because
Yeah.
as you grow in your career, the string becomes stronger. So you must be really very motivated about this whole mission, and that's how you got started. When did you start this?
So DCD formally was started in 2024. While if you ask me, I think the seed was planted more than 9 years back. Like I mentioned, the Kedarnath disaster in 2013 and my research in Nainital and understanding the carrying capacity of that destination were the two drivers to get this started. I was able to work very closely with communities which were impacted due to tourism, and the fact that something that you gain livelihood from, maybe 4 to 5 active months they were generating all of their income, and when all of that goes away, the impact that has on a population was something that kind of triggered this outcome as well.
So how did you get over that salary day, payday kind of a thing and started it?
Whenever I would visit back home, or whenever I would actually even go for travel, the angst that I felt was very real. I felt that the destinations were not really marketing themselves in the right way. They were not informing anybody of the risks that they hold. And at the same time, they were also not, while they were developing, and I think we all know the way people are traveling in India, the boom is real, right? There is a very big boom of travel that's happening. But at the same time, I felt that it was very misdirected, and that lack of awareness was very obvious. And over the years, it kind of, as I deepened my knowledge and I started learning more about sustainable destination management and how is it happening across the world, I realized that we really lack that. And that, I think that angst at one point of time got to a level where I felt that there is something, this is a problem that needs to be addressed. And instead of looking for the solution somewhere else, I thought I should be the one to start working on something like that.
Yeah, things start falling for you. I mean, fortune favors the brave kind of a thing happened for sure. And we all have different timings, so we cannot say that it's early or it's late. Uh,
True.
this is
It's
how
when
it
you're
was just.
ready. It's also when the environment is ready. So I think post pandemic, it changed a lot, because one, for 2 years, people were not traveling. And as soon as the gates opened and the bio bubbles kind of broke down, everyone was traveling even more so. 2023 was, people were traveling the most in that year, right? So it tells us also about how the world is changing and how people are making these decisions. So I felt that the environment at this time was also very ripe, where you have like something like a pandemic, which is a disaster which is spread across close to a year and a half happening, which talks about social distancing. And the very next a year, people are traveling to places, there are mass events happening, gatherings, concerts, everything's happening. So it's a way to also look at how the society functions, and where you have a problem, and then immediately after that, things bounce back even much more than expected. So this change, I think, was the environment which triggered it, because I felt that nobody is really paying attention to what happened before, and it's very easy to forget. A public memory is very short. It has been 11 years to Kedarnath. Again, a natural disaster which was exacerbated due to overpopulation and lack of planning. And now everything's back. The numbers are back to what it was. But at the same time, nobody is really remembering that to
Yeah.
keep it as a lessons learned. So the environment that at that point of time also matters. And, when you feel that this is the right time to jump into the market, this is the right time where your idea or your product or your offering will be accepted, because it's too obvious to say no to.
Yeah, in fact, post COVID, when the revenge traveling started, it is uncontrollable since then.
Yes,
And
that's true.
even if you look at it now, as India continues to grow and we talk about 7 trillion, $10 trillion economy, the travel is not going to stop anytime soon. This is
Yes.
going to be part and parcel of our
Yes,
lives.
for sure. And it has been in the World Travel and Trade Council, it has been stated that by India's travel and tourism is expected to double. It's about $200 billion economy right now, and the projection is that it will go up from 2030 to $500 billion economy. So travel is only going to increase. People are only going to travel more. More and more younger people are now traveling. So that questions and that changes the whole equation. Where now, if you have decided to become a host and a number one travel destination, what about the rest of the things that were already there? It's good to look at the future, but I think the past is where a lot of the answers and the lessons are already there. And if we focus on that, we would be better prepared for the boom that's going to happen in terms of travel.
It's very interesting. You talked about becoming number one travel destination for places. And obviously, there is competition. And in today's environment, if you don't talk about sustainability, it's like you're missing a major point.
Yeah.
So tell me more about when you talk about destinations, what is this sustainable destination is all about?
So, when we're talking about destination management, and of course, we'll come to travel, but essentially understanding how a destination functions, when it's a destination like Pune, you are looking at its native population, which already exists. Then, on top of it, you have migrants. Urban migrants, even people like me who move there for work. Now, mostly destinations don't have a very high migrant population unless they are very popular, like Mumbai, Delhi. They are nodal centers which are able to host. The second kind of destination which has this extra load on top of it is tourist destinations. Even if you look at places like small places like Nainital or Kunnur, they have a population of say 2 to 3 lakhs. But at the same time, when there is a travel season, you almost have 100% or 200% pressure because of the incoming population. So when something like that happens, there is a pressure on everything, right? From the capacity of the people to withstand, the infrastructure to be ready, the public services, like, even water, electricity, everything, they should be well equipped. And fourth is, of course, the safety and the security. Why we talk about sustainability is how long is the destination going to exist and how long can it handle. The moment there is an extra pressure in terms of the capacity, due to whatever reason, the pressure on resources is doubled. And at the same time, that lowers the longevity of the destination.
It's a very striking fact because it takes one night for a destination to go off radar because people
Yeah.
will find something or the other. They have options, but for that destination, they don't have many options. Their livelihood
For
depends on
sure.
this tourism.
Yes, because over the times they have developed and they have kind of changed their means from traditional livelihood to adopting to, tourism because of the fast pace at which it grows. It's very attractive to have people come in and consume your culture, your destination, and, of course, it benefits. But at the same time, you have to look at the longer picture and understand that how long is that benefit and what you are offering, how long can you keep offering it?
Yeah, pretty much what we are hearing for Goa this year, right? The tourism has constantly been declining.
True.
Obviously, there are various factors, but now people have international destinations available, and cost is one factor, but then experience also plays an equal role in deciding where you want to go.
Definitely. And even with Goa, you would see that post the pandemic, especially as it is expected to happen, there has been a shift in how the local cultural landscape and the people who are now moving to Goa. Earlier, it was mostly people who would go for holidays or were going to set up their businesses. But post pandemic, because online working, being nomadic, became easy. You could work from wherever. There was a huge shift of population from the rest of the country who felt that yes, we have a place which offers good food, good weather, a good time. Why can we not work from there? And that shift again was putting a pressure on the destination to provide more infrastructure. So it's very interesting because you gave that example, because that is also one of the destinations which has been having this constant pressure from tourists to perform. Goa used to have off seasons, which it doesn't have anymore. And that puts again a lot of pressure again on the stakeholders which are providing that service of it being a destination, you know. So it's a two-way thing. It's not just the destination that has to also, but what are we going, what are we demanding for is also very important to understand on how they are responding and how they are developing. Because I mean, demand drives the market, right? What are you demanding when you go there as a tourist? They will definitely want to offer that as well.
Absolutely. So from the problem is very clear now. Now let's come to the solution that you're offering. But before we go into details, I was curious that why put the word disaster in the name itself?
This is a question that I get asked many times. And I feel that number one, it's a reality that we all need to face. It's a reality we all need to wake up to, not just in travel, but in our lives. Climate change is very real. It has been accepted that by 20, we are going to see at least a degree or a degree and a half change in temperatures, which means a change in the coast, which means a change in the Himalayas, which are very, very vulnerable because of the melting glaciers. When this climate change is very real, and if nobody wants to talk about it, that's where we come in. You know, we are very specifically disaster culture and destination, keeping disaster at the front because it needs to grab those eyes, it needs to grab attention, and it needs to be talked about. When you travel, nobody talks about disasters. When you're planning your holiday, you don't think about that, right? But we try to bring those two together in one room. We want them to be part of the conversation so that everyone is more aware, everyone has that lens behind whatever decision they make, that you need to be aware of the risks that are there.
Risk management is very crucial, be it business or be it destinations.
Definitely. It's a mindset, it's a way of thinking. And if possible, in places like Japan, it's also part of your culture.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Japan embraces disasters in a way like no other country has, right? They are always ready for it, and it doesn't mean it stops the way they travel or it stops the way they function, but they're always, always prepared. Even if you go to a kindergarten and you do a drill, they always know what is the distance between two people. Even the kids know that you have to stand like this and you don't, so that you don't end up causing a stampede. And that's something that's a culture. It's been driven from you were since birth, and you talked about it because that is a fact of life. Something like this can happen, and that's what we all need to be aware of.
Absolutely. So how do you engage with your stakeholders when you figure out different destinations? First of all, who are your stakeholders? And then how exactly do you engage with them to create this long-term impact? Because these things don't show results in a very short span of time. They take
Right.
longer period. So tell me more about the engagement model that you have.
Sure. So for DCD, it's very important, firstly, to engage with stakeholders who are connected to a destination in terms of livelihood. One, that means that they have skin in the game and they are impacted by what happens to that destination. And the second is that they are connected to it by any other way, which can even be, an emotional connect. Apart from caring for it, which we all do, what can you do about it? So if you have family, if you've been there for generations, you have business there, anyone who is creatively and who collaborates with that destination, we work with them. Anyone who cares about the destination and its longevity, we work with them. So for us, the ideal stakeholders are a lot of people who have the hotel industry, the tourism industry, the tourism ministry, even colleges and education institutes who are building up leaders who will probably be invested in the destination and are going to give back to the destination. All of these people are going to be eventually also benefit from something like that. But at the same time, they have a stake in making sure that the destination survives. And that's where we come in.
Very interesting. Yeah, because there is not a single stakeholder that you can work with when it comes to destinations.
For sure. Because everyone is involved, right? If you take an example, even a school who takes kids out for, say, cleanup drives is a very important stakeholder, because when you have a destination where a lot of people come in and there's traffic, safety is impacted. I know in Dehradun, school timings have changed because of traffic of the
Mm.
tourists coming in, because it impacts the daily life. So now kids have to change their schedule based on the tourist season, because there's so much traffic that they're not able to reach on time, hence things start late, etc., etc. So even something like a school is relevant and is a stakeholder. Even someone who runs even Airbnb. Goa in India has the largest properties listed under Airbnb. Hence, if tourism is impacted in Goa and people are saying we don't want to go to Goa anymore, which, I mean, looking at the crowd, I don't know how true that is, but if that happens, they also have that stake. Apart from the tourism ministry and everyone else, they also should be worried, because that's going to impact how travel changes and hence impacting their business. So for sure, it's important for collaboration is like the foundation of doing something like this.
Yeah. And when you talk about collaboration, the next word that comes to my mind is culture, because
Yeah.
nothing can be moved without taking culture along. And in this case, it is very important because you're talking about people
True.
who have built
True.
certain habits over a period of time, and you want them to change those habits, which might come at a cost, obviously, but then the cost of not doing is very high.
Yeah.
So what role does culture play in this whole scheme of things and a survival of and growth of a destination?
So culture is actually at the center of it all. If you talk about, and it's very interesting, even when you go back in history, it was said that if you were considered to be well cultured if you were well traveled.
Yeah.
So travel and culture always go together. Even if you know it or not, people travel for culture. When you go to a destination, what you embrace, right from the food you eat, the people you speak with, the activities you do, the nature that you kind of surround yourself with, all of that very strongly forms a part of culture. That's number one. The second, which is very interesting, and we always do this exercise when we do our workshops, is when we ask people about what do they carry, when they go to a destination. Of course, you carry your hopes and your apprehensions of what it will be like, excitement, etc. But the way that you interact with a destination, it shows your own understanding of culture as well. So what happens is when someone travels, that culture, they carry their own culture with us essentially. And of course, that destination that you're traveling to already has its own culture, which is ready for you to embrace, right? So there is a very strong interaction that ends up happening with these two when you travel, essentially when you travel. And how that kind of interaction is determines how your experience is. This is looking at an experience perspective. The second is that your stories, your heroes, who do you worship, who is popular, everything forms part of culture. Who is the person, what are the stories that you have been told? What are the stories that you have been told of your destination? So now when all of these things come together, our stories inform us and they also guide us. And that is where we have most of our lessons, our history, how things have happened, how destinations have changed over the years. When we understand that, we understand how we have come to the position that we are at now. Now looking at both of these things, the interaction, the cultural interaction that happens and the culture that you inherently have, that holds the key to the survivability of the destination. It holds the key to the sustainability of the destination, because you cannot plan for anything without looking back. You can also not implement anything new unless it is going to be accepted by the people of that place, which is very closely linked to the culture. So culture plays a very big role in actually making the road for this future development. So even the solutions that you give to a destination, if they want to be sustainable, have to be rooted in culture. Only then there will be acceptance. Any kind of change that you want to do, there has to be acceptance, and that comes through if it is matching with the way of living that people have, right? And thirdly, if you want to be safe, you have to build a culture of safety. Like I gave that example, you have to make it second nature. So if you want to be sustainable, you want to be safer, you want to be whatever your goal may be, maybe you want to be a party destination, even that has to be developed very closely with how that culture of that destination is. You cannot pick a spiritual destination and make it a party center. So what we essentially do is that we focus on culture building. So you study the culture of that place, you study the history, you study the stories, you study the development. So you understand that culture. And then the second step is, where do you want to be? What is your image of what is your image of the Goa you want to create, or what is your image of there are new destinations, the Mukteshwar that you want to create. What is that image? And then you put your policies, you put your practices, you put everything in place, but it will only be implemented through culture. What is the culture of traveling that we are building? Are we teaching our next generation or even our current generation to be better travelers, to be respectful, to be mindful, to be conscious when we are traveling environmentally as well as culturally? Of course, you carry your food with you, which is also culture, and you carry your family with you and your stories with you. But at the same time, when you're traveling, how mindful and how respectful are you of the other person's culture?
Yes.
So this is also a question that we have to think for ourselves, if if Indians are being looked as not the best travelers. And it's a question again of behavior and culture that comes in.
Keep your house clean, but keep also the other's house clean where you are going. You have
Exactly.
equal responsibility for that.
We're building a culture of traveling. We are really working towards that. We want people to be traveling for spiritual purposes. We want people to be traveling for adventure. We want them to be traveling for culture. But at the same time, when you're offering all of these options to them, how ready is everyone and how prepared are they is very important. How are you communicating all of that is very important.
Yeah. And also it depends on how exactly you want to be motivated, no? You can
Right.
be either positively motivated or negatively motivated. And in our case, it's quite common that fear makes you do things faster.
Yes.
Versus if you show the rosy picture, it's like, yeah, it's life as usual, business as usual. So my last question to you is where we started, the entrepreneurship. Any thoughts on that? Because I can say with experience that a lot of people in IT sector, they are on that verge. They are thinking that they want to do things, but there is something that pulls them back. So any thoughts on that would be great.
I can only share from my experience, the journey that I have had and what I have observed around me. The leap towards entrepreneurship is a very personal decision, because it makes you question your current state of affairs, if and how you want to, what is the next step for you. And the next step, what is the driver behind that next step? Why are you taking this decision? If that decision is rooted in very strongly in your story, it's rooted very strongly in the reasons that you have to shift, it's not a difficult decision to make. But at the same time, because entrepreneurship is also something which is really being encouraged right now, which is very good. I think that's also a cultural shift that we are seeing in India now, where earlier
Yes.
everybody would say no, be safe. It's now a culture of embracing that risk. From an entrepreneurship point of view, you should make that shift when you feel that you have the right reasons and the right atmosphere to make that shift. It should not be driven out of a need of competition or out of a need of a potential advantage. Rather, it should very much be rooted in your reasons, your story, and your motivations.
Entrepreneurship cannot be a trend. It has to be a belief,
Correct.
I guess.
It becomes a trend if you have a lot of people who are very successful at it. But even then, if you delve into their stories, you will find that they shifted because there was a reason and there was an authentic reason behind it.
It's like we can relate it back to destinations that there are ample options available, but you are building your destination and you need to be sure of which way you want
Right.
to go.
Your destination, your path, your story, and I think it's for your sustainability as well. Not just the destination, but how sustainable are your dreams? How further will they take you? I think that's also very important.
That's great. It was lovely talking to you, and thank you for walking me through your thinking. Because when I first came to your profile, I found it very interesting. Talking to you helped me understand more, and I hope when this goes live, other people will also get to hear this perspective and make that desired shift when they travel next time. So, wish you all the best for your journey.
Thank you so much, Prashant. It was really nice speaking with you.